was a complex individual, incredibly kind, witty, judicious, and yet occasionally moody, confrontive, even angry. Perhaps I could shed some light on my brother by describing our family. My brother, Sister Sal, and I guess Randy wasn't present at the time, started off life, for the most part, without a father who was away at the war or working extremely long hours for the government. And when he was around, he was often full of himself, almost compulsively reminding people how smart and important he was. Our mother, by contrast, was somewhat more reticent and soft-spoken, but with a highly developed sense of compassion and morality. For example, she would admonish us to go to the aid of any kid being picked on at the playground. Fortunately, our parents had a long, loving relationship that placed great importance on both the nuclear and the large extended family. My method for coping in this early environment was generally to keep quiet and to keep my head down. Dick, by contrast, pushed back. At the dinner table, he competed for attention. He learned to tell stories with the best of them. And he talked back when he saw or heard something that didn't seem fair. At times, he could be semi-rebellious. After an unhappy time at prep school, Dick did well at the Lincoln Sub-Regional High School, where, among other things, I believe he was the class clown. Then came college, the Army, back to college, his reporting career, marriage to Sarah Wells, kids, Sarah's tragic death, kid rearing, marriage to Jean, more reporting, his early retirement, his learning of Spanish, high school teaching, medical interpreting, and then out of nowhere, a brain tumor last summer. Dick and I had so many adventures. Moving to Yankee schools in Massachusetts in 1948 with our southern accents. Going to Swiss schools in 1953 where all the kids wore short pants, even as we wore blue jeans. A memorable trip to Mexico in the summer of 1959 with two other fellows. I think Dick was a high school senior. Another road trip in Europe in the summer of 1960. A hiking trip with our dad in Switzerland in 1980. And then more recently, a trip on the Appalachian Trail, a hike on the Appalachian Trail north of Harper's Ferry in the summer of 2006. Perhaps I could just digress for a second and speak for a moment about that trip. Some of you may not remember that Dick had a certain disdain for the latest and greatest things. And it turns out when you're hiking on the Appalachian Trail, you don't introduce yourself by your own name, you use a trail name. We were in camp one evening, and a fellow came hiking in with an older fellow with a pot belly and an umbrella. It was raining. And he turned out to be an ex-Marine, and Dick immediately deemed him to be Jarhead. This guy struck back a little later. He called Dick Teddy. Why Teddy? It turns out that Dick's knapsack and assorted pots and pans reminded him of the equipment that Teddy Roosevelt, the Rough Riders, used in the Spanish-American War. We had another hike a few years later in the White Mountains, complete with a very cold night that we slept outside. So he was an incredible person. Was it nature or nurture? Who knows? But let me end with a few thoughts as to what made Dick's life so special. Here are some of the traits that come to my mind. Moody. Dick could be depressed, non-communicative, lost in newspapers. When the conditions got bad, it could rob him of his confidence and cause self-doubt. As he would say, for example, when he thought his work wasn't going well, that his powers weren't with him. He had more than his share of bad luck, and certainly at times he suffered. Creativity. I don't have to educate anyone about this trait. The Globe obituary wrote about his facility with language, but I don't think it mentioned his ability to create language. Dogs and cats weren't dogs and cats, they were fluffers, and so many other words that he made up. There were strange sounds that would come out of his mouth. Creep, creep, chitch, chitch, chitch. And so many of us acquired new nicknames from Dick. I guess that's one of the few similarities that he had with George W. Bush. Contrarian. Dick loved to challenge people, especially those that he thought were self-important or self-serving. I remember his anger when a Boston developer who knew me called with the hope that I could convince Dick to see a situation his way. Or there was the time when an Army sergeant kept all the troops in formation unless they agreed to sign up for a U.S. savings bond. Dick loved to tell us about standing in the sun in defiance until finally the sergeant gave up. Toughness. I'm not sure if the word is tough or tenacious or what, but it manifested itself in so many different ways. Dick developed the concept of pain tests, designed to see how much his friends and siblings could take. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to be asked to hit him as hard as you could in the stomach. He took up boxing in college, and his running with others could be a real challenge. When going on a run with Dick, his daughter says he would often nonchalantly suggest that they set the pace and he would just follow. And it wasn't long before most runners were sucking wind behind him. But more importantly, his tenacious quality displayed itself in his ability to deal with the death of his first wife and the raising of his kids. Tactile. Like many of you, I couldn't meet Dick without getting a giant squeeze, a bear hug, or a horse bite, or a Dutch rub. Marks of affection, I guess, that he learned from our father. And his poor daughter and wife were always having to be pulled or pushed or sat on. What a warm, demonstrative person. Loyalty. Finally, there are so many examples of Dick's love and loyalty to his friends and relatives. He was incredible in his ability to stay up with people throughout his life. He was the fellow that remembered birthdays, anniversaries, and friends from way, way back. He was the one, after our parents died, who stayed up with Danny Day, a retarded fellow who had been a longtime friend of the family. And he was such a committed friend and mentor to Eddie Farrell. What a great brother, what a great person. Thanks.